G'day battlers, and today we're going to be talking about the Psychic Cup meta coming to the Go Battle League this coming week. It does say on my graphic from September 18th to the 25th, but that's just because I'm from Australia. For most of you, it is going to be from the 17th to the 24th, and it's going to be running alongside the Master League, which is important for one major reason, and that is because it means that there is going to be 4 times dust rewards for the entire week. So it's definitely the time to get in and grind, get some Stardust to build your new Pokemon that are going to be, well, I guess the new max out Pokemon, right? The new Pokemon that are going to be good in this brand new meta update, because there are definitely a lot, and there's definitely a lot that are brand new to the Psychic Cup in the sense that they didn't used to be any good, and now they're actually going to be quite good because of the move updates. Now, we will get to that in about 30 seconds, but just for those that aren't aware, the Psychic Cup in Great League is essentially just, it's Great League, it's a Pokemon that has a Psychic typing, and that's it. If it meets those two things, you're good, except for Mew. Mew is the only Pokemon that is banned, essentially, I guess because Shadow Claw Dark Pulse is just too strong of a moveset, plus you can put any other piece of spam or Wild Charge, like it's just too good a Pokemon for the Psychic Cup, I suppose, so that is what it is. Now let's jump into what is actually going to be good in this meta, and of course, we have to get our screenshot for the thumbnail, so perfect. Now we have 3 main groups on the main graphic and then a few more Pokemon down beneath and a few other Pokemon that I'll mention at the end of the video as well that you should keep an eye out for jumping into the Psychic Cup. So main graphic is actually really simple to understand. I mean, obviously there's only 3 groups, but it's split into the Psychic types, the bulk Psychic types in that top middle. We've got Galarian Slowbro, Victini, Hooper, Bronzong, Chimecho is hiding in there, and also Bahayam. I don't know how to say this Pokemon, but it's on there. You can see the picture. You probably know it better than me. Now, in the bottom left, we have the dark types, the Malamar and the Bruxish. Bruxish doesn't actually have the dark typing, but it's acting as a dark Pokemon. It does bite damage. That's its bread and butter. And we also have the fairy types in the bottom right hand corner of the triangle with the Gardevoir and the Galarian Rapidash. So let's start with the dark types, because I think they're the easiest to understand how they fit into the Psychic Cup, and that is because they're doing super effective damage to almost everything in the entire meta. Like anything that doesn't have the fairy typing, for the most part, these guys are going to be doing super effective damage to them. So Bruxish does it with bite, fast attack damage, spam. It's got really spammy charge attacks as well with Aqua Tail, and also it's got Psychic Fangs to debuff your opponent, which is pretty handy. And then Malamar was already good in the last season, but this is the first max out update Pokemon that we're talking about here, because Psywave has had its energy generation buffed. It is a really good move now, and it's going to be able to get to those foul plays in 12 turns or 6 seconds. So it's going to be really spammy, really dangerous, and is probably one of the Pokemon that you have to build most of your teams to be prepared for. Like, it's one of the big hitters, and there's a reason that there's sort of just those two Pokemon hanging out in their little spot on the graphic. Now, who are the Pokemon that are beating the dark types? It is going to be the fairy types. They do it in slightly different fashions, but these are the Pokemon that are going to be your main counters to these dangerous dark types in the meta. Now we have Charm Gardevoir, which is just going to chunk away at Malamar especially. It doesn't quite do the same amount of damage to Bruxish because it doesn't actually have that dark typing, but you still do a lot of charm damage and you resist the bites due to your, well, it's neutral because of your fairy typing, I suppose. So then you have Galarian Rapidash, who doesn't have to use Charm. It's actually using Fairy Wind, which is another move that's been buffed in this season. So Fairy Wind, its damage was increased from 3 to 4, and because it's a 2-turn fast attack, that does add up, especially when you're up against a Pokemon like Malamar that you're doing super effective damage to. Now, Body Slam was unfortunately nerfed going into this season. Mega Horn is sort of your bread and butter, I feel like, in this meta, because you are doing super effective damage to the Psychics, and there is Wild Charge that was just added through Community Day. It could be decent. Like, there's not that many targets for you to hit with Wild Charge. PV Poke actually still recommends Body Slam just because it does have that sort of spam factor to it, but you can run Wild Charge if you want. Give it a go. I'm sure there's going to be some YouTube videos coming up pretty soon with some Wild Charge Galarian Rapidash action, but that's sort of the bottom bits. Now let's talk about the bulk Psychic types, because that is the filler, the Pokemon that are going to beat the fairy types, and then the Pokemon that are going to lose to the dark types. And so we have Victini. Victini was good last season. It's pretty similar. It's got Quick Attack. It's got V-Create, one of the strongest moves in the game, just based on raw damage. Not many Pokemon in the Psychic Cup are very keen to be seeing a V-Create coming their way. Obviously, the payoff being that Victini will debuff itself, but What makes Victini even stronger this season is that the switch timer has also been reduced from 60 seconds to 50 seconds. So it's able to debuff itself and swap out quicker, which means it's going to be a more dynamic Pokemon, which means you have to fear Victini even more this season if you didn't respect it in the past. Now, some other big buffs that came through, one was Astonish. Astonish was a move that was just known as being a really, really bad move, but it's been buffed, which has actually made a lot of these psychic types viable all of a sudden. So Trimeco, Hooper, and Bill dude, hang on, I have it written here, Bahayam, I guess. I probably should have looked up how to pronounce it earlier, but I didn't, so here we are. Please leave a comment below and tell me how to pronounce it. But these guys all have Astonish, which ghost type damage, also super effective to the psychic types, sorry. And a lot of them also have dark type charge attacks. So Bahayam, as I'm reading here, does have access to Dark Pulse. Bronzong actually also has access to Payback, but that takes a bit more time to get to. Like Hooper's got Shadow Ball actually, which is going to be incredibly powerful across the board. It's not even resisted by those fairy types. But so that sort of makes these Pokemon viable. It doesn't make them like, the top meta threat in any sense. Like they're sort of just around. There's going to be teams using them, but they're not necessarily going to be the Pokemon that you're just reaching. They're not going to be must-use Pokemon like the Dark types or the Fairy types, I feel. They're just sort of the team filler to give you a bit of an ability to counter the Fairy types and, some option. Bronzong sort of brings the Steel type into it so that you get to do quite well against the Fairies. I think Feint Attack is the recommended fast attack on PvPoke. And the Galarian Slowbro is another one that is actually brand new here and also quite powerful because, it has Poison Jab, so it was already quite good against the Fairies, but Brutal Swing was added into its toolkit this brand new season, and so it's going to be extra powerful against all of the other psychic types, so it's quite strong. I want to say it's rank 3 on PvPoke. It's at least top 5. It's definitely going to be a very strong Pokemon, and probably one of the ones to watch out for a little more than maybe the others. You are going to be weak to the psychic damage, so anyone that is still running any form of psychic damage, like I guess Psychic Fangs Bruxish, you're still going to be a little scared of that. But those guys are all generally going to be beating the Fairies, and so that is your basic ABC RPS. It's not RPS, but you know what I mean. Like they're generally the things that are countering each other, the fire, water, grass of this combo. Now, a few more picks down below. One is really highly ranked, and that is Claydol. Claydol just doesn't quite fit onto the main graphic. It is running Mudslap Scorching Sands, which obviously you're going to have great matchups against the steel types like Bronzong or Jirachi, who's also down here. But then you've got access to Shadow Ball, which is going to be again, big nuke damage across the board. For the most part, Bronzong, Claydol, you're still doing a lot of Mud Slap damage that can add up quite a bit, especially against a lot of the other Pokemon in this meta. Like Galarian Slowbro doesn't love it, Alolan Raichu doesn't love it, so it's just another option. And of course, Claydol has a gazillion moves. If you want to get a bit spicy with it, you can try and run something else, surprise your opponents, see what happens. Alolan Raichu is one that does have access to Wild Charge. It also has access to Trailblaze, which has been buffed this season. It's another one that's a bit more, I don't want to say it's on the spicy side because it's just outside the top 10 on PvPoke, but at the same time it's just again not one that everyone is going to be reaching for. But if you want to output big damage quickly, and again, it actually is buffed in the sense that the switch timer has been brought from 60 to 50, so Wild Charge, dip, happy days, you're again in a pretty strong position. Now, Little Bayhem LGM is also relatively strong in this meta. I felt like it's slightly worse than Bayhem, which is why I've put it in the alternatives, but it pretty much operates the exact same way. It's almost got the same moveset, it just has a different coverage move. I think it's running Rock Slide, so, it is what it is. And then Jirachi. Jirachi used to be on the same tier as Bronzong, in my opinion, but I think it's just fallen out to be a little bit worse this time around. It still has access to Doom Desire, so you can hit the Fairies really hard, but I think if you want to bring a steel type onto your team, Bronzong probably the way to do it. But I did say I was going to go through some other Pokemon that might be good, so I've just pulled up the PvPoke rankings now. And there's other Pokemon like Meowstic who have Sucker Punch that was just buffed. You might have seen it in a Little Gala Cup. By Sucker Punch, I mean, not necessarily Meowstic. There's Cresselia that's around that's, pretty decent. Galarian Slowking used to be really good because it has Hex, Surf, Shadow Ball, which sounds like a really powerful moveset. In practice, there's just a few Pokemon that are a bit better in the max out move update. There's things like Lunatone, Metang, Armarouge, Girafarig, but you know the deal. There's a lot of other Pokemon you can dive into PvPoke if you really want to, but in a nutshell, this is the Psychic type Cup meta. Let me know if you think I've missed anything or if there's some big move update that I've completely ignored, or if I've got something completely wrong. I probably have, ignoring pronunciation of one Pokemon in particular. But with that said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, especially that subscribe one. Thank you also to my patrons and YouTube members for being lovely human beings. And also do check out that undercharge video that I put out last week. It's done much better than I expected it to. So appreciate everyone for checking that video out. But I think it's a really good video. I think it sort of covers something that isn't very well known about undercharging that I think can sort of improve a lot of people's games. So do check that video out especially. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.